Hello! Salaam Alaikum, everyone. Ramadan Kareem. It is the first of Ramadan today. It may be different in. I see it's called by the phases of the moon, so sometimes different places call it differently, especially between Shia and Sunni. But it's the first of Ramadan in most places, so. Ramadan means the burning month. So I guess ideally you might imagine it to be quite hot, but Ramadan, because it goes according to the lunar calendar, can actually change year to year and does. So it can slip from being in summer all the way back into winter. So yeah, it was more when I first converted, it was more in the heat of summer, and now it is getting a little bit closer to winter. It's kind of spring summer border almost. I don't know anything on Muslim religion holidays, so I'm excited to learn. Oh, that's great. Well, I am not an expert, as I said. I am a convert. I actually converted quite some time ago, but a lot of stuff happened in my life, so I never managed to educate myself to the degree that I should have. And I'm kind of on the periphery of Muslims. Like, I'm almost more a Muslim-derived faith person in some ways. A lot of my beliefs are kind of a little bit in line with there's some echoes of, like, for example, the Druze and stuff like that, but I still regard myself as a Muslim overall, and I can definitely educate people on all the basics that they might otherwise miss out on. So I guess that's a bit make it's complicating things, but so just for the sake of argument, I'm Muslim. I'm going to teach you about Ramadan and other stuff a little bit. So Ramadan is um, well, yeah, as I said, it's called the burning month, but it is a month of fasting for most people. But for other people, it can be a month of spiritual reflection. Unfortunately, not everyone can fast during Ramadan. There are a lot of exceptions listed in the Quran. Um, People who are disabled or have other issues may not be able to, pregnant women and stuff like that, or people in general, speak gender inclusive, may not be able to. So there are exceptions to it. Personally, I do think that there's a very strong emphasis on fasting during Ramadan, and that can be very difficult because even if people know there are exceptions, they still feel left out. I think it can be a very nice thing as a community to do. If you have family or a mosque that you can attend and you can fast with people, then it's really nice. But for people who are outside of it, especially a lot of LGBTQ Muslims and all that, they don't necessarily get the same sort of level of spiritual benefit from it necessarily. So a lot of people don't fast during Ramadan, even if they can, because they're kind of a bit disconnected, and it can often just remind them of that. And it's not necessarily the best way to for them to express their Muslimness or feel Muslim. But I have fasted sometimes during Ramadan. Um, but usually I cannot fast water because I have a really severe sinus issues where if I don't drink, my sinuses dry up and I can't breathe properly, and also a chronic pain that makes things very difficult. So I have a lot of issues. I don't tend to fast during Ramadan. I think there's a lot of pressure to, but if you can't do it, it is really nice, and it's surprising that the way that you can get used to it and the sort of big meals after. Like I miss kind of going to the masjid after the mosque. And yeah, it does say in the Quran that Allah does not want to burden you, and it is very explicit about that. But unfortunately, Allah and Muslims are not always super well aligned, so there can be a lot of issues. So yeah, Ramadan, you know, it is a time that Muslims fast, but there's a lot of other things to it. It is a general sacred holiday. It is not this really dour sort of we gotta like chant in our rooms alone and not eat, and it's actually not like that. It does seem to be a lot of, like a time of celebration. There's decorations like little moons and stars and things like that, and people stock up on snacks. They go to Dale's and get some potato chips and stuff like that, and they stack up for iftar. So that is when you break. So you usually have your meal quite late at night or early in the morning, sujoor, and then you do not eat until you break at iftar. So if I get things wrong, it's because I've been so out of the loop for a while now. I've been totally disconnected from everything the last year. Um, but yeah, so basically you don't eat from sun up till sundown, and you're meant to also fast water, but obviously some people can't do that. So, but yeah, generally no food or water from sun up to sundown, and a lot of it because it is like a cultural thing for a lot of people. They practice it since they were kids. It's not as difficult as it necessarily sounds, but it is still Like, this is a huge thing for converts, especially like myself. It's such a shock to the system. So it's not surprising a lot of people never fully learn to do it. So before I go on, that's my little intro to what Ramadan is. I won't just be talking about Ramadan though, but I did want to clear it up since it is the first of Ramadan. I am going to start with Al-Fatiha, the opening, which is the basically the first chapter of the Quran, but it also sums up the Quran in 9 lines. So we're going to read that. I would do the call to prayer, but we're not actually going to do Salah, which is the usual prayer today. And yeah, and you also have, usually if you go to we go to your mosque to break fast. They usually do prayers there as well. Well, they do prayers there, but yeah, okay. So we're just going to start with this. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Rahmanirrahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. Ameen. In the name of Allah, the infinitely compassionate and merciful. Praise be to Allah, Lord of all the worlds, the compassionate and the merciful, ruler on the day of reckoning. You alone do we worship, and you alone do we ask for help. Guide us on the straight path, the path of those who received your grace, not the path of those who have brought down wrath, nor of those who wander astray. Ameen. Okay, that's an older version of a different translation, which is why I stumbled a bit with it. We use a different one in my masjid, but I wanted to use a more generic one from Sufi.org. I think it was Sufi.org. Sufism.org, yeah. So that's the opening of the Quran. So now it feels like we can really start things up now. Do I have to fold my hands? No, you don't have to do anything if you don't want to. I do not have hand tracking, so I cannot show you the sort of, but you don't have to do any particular hand movements just for reading out Al-Fatiha. But in the masjid I used to belong to, and in the one I belong to now, we often read Al-Fatiha at the end. So we ask for like basically people to pray for, and we all read Al-Fatiha together as sort of little blessing for everyone. So now I would very much like to read a prayer. See, in Islam you have two types of prayer mainly, and one is called Salah, which you do 5 times or 3 times a day depending. But again, I am a crappy lazy Muslim, so I do not tend to pray very often, which isn't actually the worst thing in the world, because one thing the Quran says is that there's actually many ways to pray, and the trees pray to God by bending in the wind and things like that. So there's there's a lot of ways to pray, but Salah is sort of the standard way. Because I I have really bad executive functioning issues and chronic pain, so that is why I do not pray as often as I could. Most of the stream is just going to be me explaining why I'm not a great Muslim, but it's also important to remember that while I would like to do these things more often than I do, there are many different ways to be a Muslim. It says in the Quran, there is many paths to Allah as there are grains of sand in the desert, and that's something Rumi also said an awful lot. That was one point that he liked to emphasize a lot. So we're going to one particular way in which I like to honor Allah is with this. This is with the other type of prayer, which is called dua, which means supplication, or it's like an additional prayer. You can say it at the end of Salah or just in general. So I have a couple here that I would like to get into. Particularly my favorite one, and it was a favorite one of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and he quite liked to recite this every day. It is called Dua Al-Nur, prayer of light. And since we're saying the name Nur, F in the chat for Niji Sandy India, and Nur, who is someone I only got into recently, but probably my favorite YouTuber design and my favorite big gay energy of most VTubers. So I'm pretty sad about that. But Nur means light in Arabic. So this is the prayer of light, Dua Al-Nur. And this one is I actually only have in English, so I've never really read this in Arabic. In my masjid, my mosque, we used to always read it in English. So I have other ones that are in Arabic. Oh Allah, grant me light in my heart, light in my grave, light in front of me, light behind me, light to my right, light to my left, light above me, light below me, light in my ears, light in my eyes, light on my skin, light in my hair, light within my flesh, light in my blood, light in my bones. O Allah, increase my light everywhere. O Allah, grant me light in my heart, light on my tongue, light in my eyes, light in my ears, light to my right, light to my left, light above me, light below me, light in front of me, light behind me, and light within myself. Increase my light. That is the Dua Al-Nur, the prayer of light. And there is another one we tend to like to say, which is the Salawat, invocations of blessings. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ali ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ali Sayyidina Muhammad. Allah's blessings on our noble leader Muhammad and the family of our noble leader Muhammad. Okay. God, this feels surreal since I usually don't play up my Muslim as much in this stream. I just like it's Arabic on my loading screen and I occasionally mention it. But yeah, it is nice to remember that I am technically Muslim sometimes. So yeah, that is I guess the main intro part out of the way. Although, well, I'm probably only going to be doing a little over half an hour. I am going to take a sip of Pepsi Max. So one trick actually that a lot of people in countries that are further north and are colder and have longer basically the days are different, the hours are different, is they like to go according to the nearest Muslim majority country that's in your time zone. Like I would go by Fez or Morocco. So when I was asking during the summer, I think it would be like 7:30 to 8 that I'd break fast. Obviously, if I go into the mosque, the masjid, I'd have to wait out the full time. But that is a really good sort of little trick to sort of still be in line. And of course, you're doing it in time with a bunch of other people, even if they're not in your country as well. So you're still kind of, especially during COVID and that, I would recommend it. But yeah, the community is a huge part of Ramadan, in my opinion, especially when it comes to Eid, which is the big celebration at the end. Well, we've two. We've Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha. But the Eid at the end of Ramadan tends to be the bigger one. And I'm just looking up some dates. So Eid al-Fitr, 2021, begin the evening of Wednesday 12th of May and the evening of 13th of May. So that is when Ramadan will end. And people have big parties and stuff, and it's really great. The thing about Muslims is that even though they don't drink, in general, there are some exceptions. There's some interesting sort of opinions on interpretations in the Quran as to whether or not alcohol is fully expressly forbidden. But in general, Muslims do not drink. And so they tend to go in for other things that are like kind of celebratory, and Eid is a really good example. They get dressed up and all sorts. And again, this is one of the misconceptions I want to clear up, because Muslims are often depicted as being very dour people in the Western media, especially. Like occasionally we'll have more colourful, flamboyant, eccentric, exotic characters because of that Orientalism aspect. But yeah, no, Muslims like to celebrate things, and yeah, and there used to be more diversity in terms of how people celebrated things and how people express their Muslimness. But because of the sort of basically, I don't want to get into too much politically, but I am just coming off a leftist stream, and sort of my people in here from that anyway. There's been a kind of colonization of sorts from the sort of stricter Saudi sort of Islam across the world that has very much made things sort of one way and one generic Islam, which is problematic. And see, there's nothing necessarily wrong in of itself within those things. And there's a lot of the more conservative traditions that I still appreciate and might keep up. Like I'm wearing a headscarf right now, at least I model, and I did when I went out today. I don't generally wear one anymore, but I think it is nice, and people have various reasons for reading them. So it can be kind of complicated. But yeah, there is a lot, like Muslims overall throughout the globe do tend to be pretty conservative with a lot of things and more restricted. But again, it wasn't always that way relative to the Western world. And that does tend to be something more recent, especially in the last few decades. And that is a lot to do with the big Saudi money coming in and building mosques and stuff like that that are sort of according to their ideology. So that's one thing I want to get out of the way. So there's no one way to be Muslim, as I said, and not everyone does do Ramadan, not everyone can do Ramadan. But it is obviously an important month in the calendar, because there are things that happen through it, like the Night of Power, which your prayers basically have more power to them, and things like that. And so yeah, so it's still an important month, and obviously the Eid at the end is a big feast, and it's wonderful. And Muslims do like to celebrate things and do things, and yeah, and dance and music are a part of Muslim culture as well. But again, the more conservative strains of Islam will say you can't listen to music during Ramadan or at all. So let's see if I can find some royalty free, just to pachoo in the face of people who say that me I can't do this. See if there's some nice Sufi music or something. Royalty free Sufi music. Yeah, yes, there is. It's only 3 minutes long though. Sufi music, blah, blah, blah. Is that royalty free? Sufi Islamic song. Meditation. Yeah, God, it is so hard to find the Arabic and Middle Eastern music now. Best Sufi music. Oh, this is one that has really wonderful. Okay, yeah, I'll pay attention to the chat for a second. Lilith Talima, my favorite spoopy Australian girl. Hiya, Rose. Ever since I found out Ramadan started, I was hoping to do a stream talking about it. Yes, I'm glad people do remember that I'm Muslim occasionally, and I am doing a stream talking about it. Again, I am out of the loop. I am a bit disconnected when it comes to Muslim things, and I didn't have people to teach me how to be Muslim. When I converted, basically a lot of the people that I was friends with moved out of the country because they were exchange students and that, or got super busy. So I was kind of left on my own a lot of the time. So I just tended to follow whatever my chat did. Oh wow, Lilith, you sent the question that a flag doesn't contain the word Muslims. That's interesting. Here we go. Do many Muslims have a big feast before Ramadan? Because that's what totally I do fast for. Why, yes. And I'll tell you. I explained a little bit earlier. There is a meal called suhoor, where you stock up on food before the feast, basically. So yeah, I'm not sure like the soup how healthy this is, since you need to do it like before you go to bed or whatever, before you sleep. So that's probably not the bestest thing. And a lot of Muslims will say, "Oh, it's great, you can lose weight during Ramadan." That does not happen, generally speaking. It is better on the body that some people might realize, and usually like medical professionals say, no, actually you can do Ramadan if you're normal, healthy, and blah blah blah. But yes, so obviously you do stock up in food and water. And again, this is a difficulty for me because I like I pee a lot. I do not so stocking up on water isn't really something I can do necessarily. Again, I dry out my sinuses really easy, and so this is a problem. And I feel really guilty if I'm like seen. There's a reasonable Muslim population where I am, so I feel really guilty if I'm seen drinking water and things. And of course, this has a lot to do with the nosiness of a lot of Muslims, where they're like judge you for things that they really, really shouldn't. And that is definitely very un-Muslim. But you still get self-conscious as well with these things. But yeah, you do fast before you do feast before the fast. Okay, what was I doing before that? Oh, yeah, suhoor, I was explaining that. Oh yeah, it's also traditional to break fast with dates. I actually have a big bag of chalky dates, although I've eaten most of them already. But yeah, I'm not going to be fasting till later in the month probably. I'll see. I'll be down with my parents a while, so it might be easier to do it. And they've been pretty supportive. They weren't so much at first, but then when I was down, we like have this chalkboard where they used to write Happy Christmas, and when it's Eid, it changes to Happy Eid. Liana, that's my real life name, and that's really cute. And so now it is going to be, yeah. So it'll be this time of the year, obviously. But it's not Eid yet. But yeah, when I go home, so they cook. I do get meals cooked for me and stuff. So that's quite cute. And I used to, when I had Muslim friends here, we used to go to houses and stuff, not as often as I would have liked. And my friend Mariola, the lady I look after, and I nanny her kids sometimes. I guess I'm not really a nanny if I'm not like living with them, but like I am attached to adopted by the family, so I'm not like a random babysitter or such. She's made me meals as well a couple of times for breaking fast, so that's nice. I forgot what I was going to talk about after this. Oh yeah, I was looking for the Sufi music. Let's see. Wonderful Sufi. Yeah, there's this. Oh yeah, I was going to talk about this a traditional music channel. I don't know if this is royalty free or not, but they have like very old they have like stuff that's like folk music and stuff like that, and very, very old traditional Turkish Sufi name music. Is this? I'd imagine this is probably royalty free. Oops. Excuse me. Yeah, I don't think there should be any problem using this. So, Sufi. Let's see what they have. Kashmir, Syrian Sufi music. I'm trying the Syrian one. So this is away from me. And now, what I want to get into those. Do I have? I just select an audio source, desktop audio. Yeah, I'll turn the desktop audio on. There we go. Now it's all atmospheric. Oh, really? Where I am now in the background, I should not be playing music in here, but I'm only virtually here. I'm in a parallel universe version of the Dome of the Rock where it's okay. So where I am now, as I was saying, I'm Irish. I don't have a direct connection to any Islamic culture. There's only very weak historical connections, which is kind of weird, but I guess it means I get to make things up a bit more. Like, I'm kind of a syncretic person that I like to work in little bits of Irish myth into my beliefs in a way, or at least from like a lore perspective. But where I am now is the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. And the rock you can see behind me, not Dwayne Johnson, a different sort of rock. This is a very important rock throughout Abrahamic history. The Dome of the Rock was built on the site. Oops. I did not mean to go to horse, sorry. The Dome of the Rock was built on the site of the Second Temple in Judaism, which was destroyed in about 62, 70, 80 by the Romans. So basically it was committed during the Second Fitna, which is sort of the Second Islamic Civil War. It was commissioned by some emperor. I don't have the exact names. But yeah, and it's basically been standing since the 6th century, has it? Or 7th century. So it's been standing for a very, very long time in roughly the same shape as it was back then. So it's possibly the oldest example of Islamic architecture, especially since the Saudis bulldozed a lot of the early Muslim architecture. Because money. Oh, I'm sorry. But yeah, it's a very beautiful place. It is in Jerusalem, so there is the contested nature of it. It is technically sacred. Like, it does have relevance, obviously, to Abrahamic faiths in general, so Judaism included. But obviously, the whole situation with Palestine, and that makes it very difficult, because I would love to go see it. So what happens when I build a temple on top of Dwayne Johnson joke? I'm sorry about that. Well, you know, I think you could probably build a temple on top of Dwayne Johnson, and he's pretty strong chest. Sorry, I'm sipping my Pepsi Max. Oh, speaking of wrestlers, I'm going to be watching wrestling in Yancha server later, but I'll be over plenty of time for that. But yeah, Dome of the Rock. It's said to be. There's numerous sort of myths about it in Abrahamic faiths in general. It's said to be like where Adam was created and stuff like that, where man first emerged in that mythology, or where the binding of Isaac happened. That's where the entire video game is set here. Yeah, I'm in the basement. Things that actually the binding of Isaac is quite different in Islam, because it's not something the father does to the kid without him knowing. It's something it's like the kid sacrifice as well. So that's really interesting. It's like something that I don't think he's as much of a kid in it either. But anyway, that's a complicated thing, and there's a lot of very old myths and stuff woven into Abrahamic faiths that can be often difficult to sort of update in terms of their relevance. But yeah, that's why I often take a more allegorical approach to religion. I think it works better that way. I think it was intended that way. And in Sufism, they all say there's like 99 layers of meaning to every line in the Quran and things like that. So I think that, yeah, it's... There's so many things that are like repeated in the Quran that really give the spirit of it, that are often ignored in favor of like obscure rulings or things like that. And yeah, so like the Islam of the early Muslims was quite different to the Islam we have nowadays in general, aside from the very recent Wahhabification of everything. So, oh god, so I'm so sorry. I'm going to alienate people with very specific Muslim community drama. But yeah, what was I talking about? Yeah, Dome of the Rock, very, very cool place. Let me look up the any other cool facts about it. Yeah, Kubata Sakura is what it's called. And in Hebrew, Kippah HaSalah. I don't know how to pronounce Hebrew very well, though. Yeah, it was originally based somewhat of Byzantine architecture, even though it's an example of Islamic architecture. And it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Oh, it's Umayyad Caliph Abd al-Malik during the Second Fitna was, I know that was in 691 CE. And it was destroyed. The second Jewish temple, which it was built on top of, was destroyed in 70 CE during the Roman siege of Jerusalem. The original the actual dome part of it collapsed in 1015. It was built in 1022, 23. God, it's so weird to think that like that's so long ago, but it was already like over 300 years old at that point. And it's another 1,000 years old since then. Oh, that's wild. Yeah, so it is kind of interesting to think about how old some stuff is that's still standing, even if there's a ship of Theseus thing going on. But yeah, Dome of the Rock, important. I would love to go see it in person. Very pretty, very cool, very spiritual, very significant, not just to Islam, but all Abrahamic faiths and from a historical perspective as well. But obviously, the thing in Jerusalem and Israel, and I probably shouldn't talk about it too much on stream, but it's a difficult situation anyway. So yeah, I do not have my own cultural connection. So unfortunately, you often are forced to be a little bit of an Araboo. Araboo, I don't know how to pronounce that. A lot of people I knew were actually South Asian, so you do get some of my converts who are a bit more South Asian cultured in that way. I'm kind of a little bit random in how much it is difficult because as a white convert, you will often get accused of cultural appropriation by certain people. Granted, mostly tankies, but they don't like Muslims that much anyway. um, but yeah, it's so it can be difficult, like finding a place where you fit for converts in general. People coming from traditions or cultures that don't have a strong ties to Islam as such. Sorry, I keep making the face whenever I sip. I need to get a sip animation like Abby. I have my own blessed sip that it's acceptable to sip in the Dome of the Rock. But yeah, so what do I want to talk about next? Yeah, I'm trans and I'm Muslim, which is obviously the big controversial thing for a lot of people. And there is actually tradition within early Islam of the Mukanath. And it was said that the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had a companion called Hit. Like Hit as in like the Dragon Ball character, which is kind of funny, but they were a Mukanath, which is kind of a third gender sort of designation. It was that sort of third gender designation where it was sort of ambiguous as to whether they were a trans woman or some other trans femme or. So yeah, there are records of them existing alongside the Prophet. And so there's a history there, and there are also the 6 classical genders in Judaism, going back even further. And of course, during the Mughal Empire, you had the Hijra were quite important, or Kusra Kajra Kaura. Oh, sorry, the Kusra were quite important during that era as well. That was a very interesting era. The Mughal era was very interesting in general for the syncretic nature of how it combined a lot of South Asian culture with Islam. And that has often been the norm, despite Islam being, if you read the Quran, it's very aggressively monotheist. And it seems like the way that it gets implemented a lot is the way that it erases culture and erases like folk beliefs. But in reality, that's not what Islam has been for most of history, and it has been more syncretic and a bit like it is like how Catholicism tends to be quite syncretic, like it was in Ireland, but then it got more heavily connected with Rome and more bastardized. So you're getting kind of something similar happen with Islam, where they try to make it into a centralized Vatican type thing, but yeah. So obviously, like most, like I'm not going to gloss over it. Like in general, Muslim majority countries are pretty hostile towards gay people and trans people. Weirdly, less so trans people in some ways, because I guess there is more of a history of that. But yeah, and that really sucks, and it's hard to talk about it because people will use it as an excuse to basically justify Islamophobia. That is a huge issue. Like white gays can be very Islamophobic, They think they have a right to be because they're gay. In some ways, trans people are less so, and I like any group that's like more actively marginalized will be more sympathetic with Muslims, I think. But yeah, it is. Again, there is a tradition of it. It's not something that's mentioned in the Quran as such, but there is definitely a tradition of it, and I, yeah, I am of the opinion that there is nothing at all homophobic in the Islamic religion itself. I think a lot of it is down to interpretation. Often the interpretation of the same things in Christianity, like the story of Lut or Lot, which is taken out of historical context to mean a certain thing. And I don't think like some Muslims will say same sex love is okay, but you still can't have sex because of reasons and that like premarital affair or zina and all this. I think a lot of these like Arabic words, the etymology is often a bit unclear and the meanings have drifted. And that's in the original like Arabic, let alone translations that often get done from Saudi sources and distributed to other languages, especially English speaking countries. But yeah, so I do not think Islam is a homophobic religion. There's a lot of resources I had to read while I was investigating, see if it was worth my while even getting involved. And actually, the masjid I was involved with had a gay imam who ran it with his partner. Unfortunately, we had a big falling out in that masjid over reasons that I won't get into too much because it's too much of a downer. But we have our own little off splinter group now, so there's some of us there. But yeah, so Muslim queers, you're going to see more and more of them because the younger generation aren't swallowing a lot of the crap that the older generation are. Because, well, like Islam for a very long time has been dominated by like scholars and stuff like that. And since, like a lot of this was sort of codified, an awful lot of it is colonial nonsense. Like, what is it, British or French colonists, especially in the Victorian years, exporting a lot of these values. And unfortunately, they got codified in the constitutions and the attitudes and now that Western values have shifted more towards being accepting, a lot of these countries ironically cling more to the older values, thinking they're anti-Western and they're being all edgy and cool and anti-imperialist doing that when that's not really the case at all. Um, so yeah, but also a lot of there were certain things codified in like when Iraq was the center, Baghdad was the center of the world. Like so, a lot of things like when the Hadith are sort of compiled 200 or 300 years after the Prophet's death around then a lot of these things were sort of coded. So that sort of laid the seeds for Islamic homophobia in my opinion. So I like to harken back to like early Islam as much as I can. Which is funny because like they call themselves Salafis, which implies the first couple of generations, but they're nearly always more based on that sort of period, plus a lot of modern colonial nonsense. So yeah, also Zoomers are a lot gayer and appearance. Yeah, see, it's like you just can't suppress the gay of Zoomers, and I think that's going to really do a lot of these people in. I just hope we can like keep the world alive long enough for Zoomers. Not that Zoomers don't have their own flaws as a generation, but jeez, because we have created kind of a hostile environment for Zoomers to grow up in, unfortunately, which may well have negative effects. But yeah, I part of me is kind of hopeful for Islam going forward, like that there'll be sort of quiet inverted commas reformation. Unfortunately, and this is why there was fallout within our mosque was generally pretty left leaning anti colonialist. Like we had land acknowledgements at the start. It was based in Ontario, but unfortunately, they did have a habit of more and more linking arms with these reformist types who were more, again, colonialistic types, making a lot of apologia. And so, yeah, there was one particular figure who's well known in like Europe as being a bit of. Uh, uh, someone who coddles up with the far right a bit, being one of the good Muslims, and yeah, that caused big fallout. But yeah, so that's our school of reformism. A couple of them tried to poach me at first because I was a convert who wasn't. A lot of converts came pretty conservative first. I was not. I was pretty outspoken on being trans. I did a lot of research, but stuff written by gay Muslims and things. But unfortunately, that meant they tried to poach me a little at first, and I was like, no, 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 no. And they did not like that. So anyway, I'm constantly straddling in between where I'm almost like apologizing for more conservative Muslims a little bit more than them because I know they grew up in cultures that were subsumed by this and don't have say a lot like people in America obviously are cultured a certain way in Britain, but they still have more frame of reference to break out of that than a lot of people do that have been mired in years and years of this. So it's a very complicated situation, and there's only so much I can talk about it because I am a white convert, and it's not my, well, not even less than that. Like, I'm not a member of these specific cultures and how they have been changed by these things. So, and again, it can be a little bit different. Like, Albania is a Muslim majority nation, and I think they have better protections for LGBT people than the US, but not that that's hard. Of course, that doesn't necessarily mean it's good to be gay in that country. I couldn't attest to that. But yeah, funny enough, gay men used to go to Morocco during basically the 50s and that, when there was a big panic about gay people in Hollywood and all that and that sort of thing. So yeah, not that Morocco was an absolute paradise, but they like gave less of a crap about that back then, and like a lot of Muslim majority nations are actually more liberal sexually, which is really interesting. So yeah, it is. I would like to see a return to that in some ways, but also like, I think it was like images of like say Afghanistan before the revolution, and Iran before the revolution as well, and Afghanistan in the 70s are often used as justification for like invasions and things like that, because oh, look at how liberal they used to be and all this, and like, yeah, I would like to see kind of a return to that, but I like this idea that because it looks more Western it's better, it's that causes all kinds. So you can kind of balance both things a bit, I think, where you can still respect a lot of the actual traditions and while still sort of liberalizing more in other ways. Again, I'm a pretty like wobbly Muslim, so I'm not very strict in anything really, but there are some more traditional things I do have an appreciation for. So, I've been talking a lot. How are y'all doing, chat? There's still some of you left there. Not many, but okay, I guess you're doing okay then. So, yeah. Anything else to say about Ramadan or Islam? Hello, loving your scene today. Thank you, Lahua13. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad people actually turned up. That's good. Good to see chat's doing well. Yeah, I forgot there's a bit of a small delay there. Some of you may be coming from Kevin's stream, some of you coming from VTuber places, some of you might be coming from my spoopy places or dad places. I'm part of a bunch of communities. I'm sort of trying to straggle together an audience. So yeah, I might do a couple more of these streams throughout Ramadan. Most likely I'll do one for Eid, and I might have a fancier, a better Muslim model or whatever you want to call it. I might commission someone to. I basically just found a free texture and edited it and wrapped it around my body and got this hijab off Booth. So it's a little bit of a lazy outfit, and I didn't even bother adding my ears back in or my fringe. In real life, I have a fringe / bangs, so when I wear hijab or headscarf, you do just puck through. But I liked how this looked, so I didn't want to go back adding it back in and faffing around in Blender, which does not work super well with theorems. I would have added my tail back if I had time, but yeah. I don't know, I kind of like how I look right now. So I wanted to floof out the scarf a bit more. Maybe actually model the Hamza instead of a texture, but you guys probably didn't even notice that much. Oh yeah, the symbol I have on my chest is the Hamza, which is, or the hand of Fatima. The Hamza is like popular in both Judaism and Islam, especially Islam. Maybe some Christian sects as well. It's often associated in general with the Middle East and certain other religious spiritual movements as well. And yeah, in Islam it's often associated with Fatima, the hand of Fatima. It is one of those things that's appropriated a lot by like hippie-ish white girls, like Rumi. So yeah, Rumi, like, you get a very diluted version in the West a lot of the time, but not always. There's some translations which are slightly better. So I might actually, I'm not sure if I'll close the stream after this, but I do like to read things for you, my petals, because I am your virtual fairy nanny. So I might read some poems for you by Jalaluddin Rumi. These are like actual proper ones, not ones that are like have the Islam sucked out of the. Rumi was a Muslim. There's people that like try to suck that out of it almost. But yeah, I'm going to read from this translation, which is pretty good. It is from the Rubais of Rumi, translations by Nevitt O'Organ and Will Johnson. And it's just some pretty good ones. I sometimes just like to flick through and pick a random poem and read it. So here we go. O soul, I've lost my soul as well as the universe. O moon, I've lost the earth as well as the sky. Don't hand me to my hand. Pour me into my mouth. Through your drunkenness, I've lost the way to my mouth. Yeah, some of them are pretty weird. Okay. Yeah, Rumi talks a lot about drunkenness, which is interesting because, as I said earlier, most Muslims don't drink. But he means like a metaphorical drunkenness. Some Sufis did actually drink wine and use drunkenness as a spiritual thing, which is kind of interesting. Again, there's a complicated history there with how certain things are interpreted, but... This isn't spring. This is another season altogether. The spark in every eye comes with its unique flavor of union. Every branch is moving, but each one stirs for a different reason, moved by a different wind. O beauty, no one in this world is as pure and clean as you. No one is more elegant and charming. There will always be compromises and arguments on the way of love, but as long as you're my friend, that's enough for me. Hi Dragon Cat Lily, you managed to catch the both end of the stream. Happy Ramadan, Ramadan Kareem. So I am just reading some Rubais from Rumi, and these are like somewhat properly translated ones. Beloved said to me, "Since you buy kisses from every beauty, why won't you buy one from me?" "With gold?" I asked. "No," he said. "What can I do with gold?" "With life?" I asked again. Yes, said he. It's okay, don't apologize for being late. So don't have to apologize to your local VTuber for being late. How amazing that the beloved fits in my heart, that the souls of 1,000 bodies fit inside this body. There are thousands of harvests in a single grain, and hundreds of universes pass through the eye of a needle. Oh yeah, we're getting into the Rumi multiverse here. Be a falcon in your rapture, be a lion in your majesty. Find the treasure of the contented soul. Walk fast, get to the place where neither fast nor slow exist. Ascend to the height where there is no high or low. So one theme of Rumi's poetry and of Sufism in general is this idea of going to a place beyond everything. The elsewhere, if you will. Critters end then. But also it's a sort of oneness with God. It's almost like a self-destruction in a way, or what's it called? Annihilation. But yeah, there's still an exploration of identity and self as well. So it's like a simultaneous ceasing to be as you while being you on a larger scale. It's very hard to describe. I am someone quite attached to my individuality. So yeah, the idea of completely losing yourself and just being part of a collective entity is kind of scary, but yeah. It's a bit more complicated than that. It doesn't matter whether I wear spring or fall colors. I'm still just me. In fact, if one of them didn't exist, neither the rose bloom nor its thorns could grow. Differences in appearances are only in the eyes. The rose garden laughs at those kind of eyes. That's a nice one. Rumi Noor at Ruby 2099 teaming up to blow minds all over the shop. There was this series of games, I think it's called Exile or Exilor or something like that. And yeah, you play as like an Islamic assassin. I think your psychic is like Ruby, but like 16-year-old anime girl Rumi. I think you're just called Rumi. Don't have any actual relation, but it's still kind of funny to think of an anime girl Rumi. Or Mangaverse Rumi, if you will. So yeah, that was some Rubais from Rumi. So the one thing I didn't talk about yet was like disability in Ramadan, because I am disabled. Well, I'll just run through my disability for people who are curious as to which ones make it difficult for me to fast. As first off, I'm autistic. I can get very peculiar with routines and things. It can be very hard for me to shift routines, and I have bad executive functioning. I have ADHD as part of it, so this is why I can't really pray very often. I actually haven't prayed properly in a while since the fallout with the masjid, but it is Ramadan now, so I will get back into it. I often only pray like once a day because of that, and I think it's better to do that and really spiritually feel it than to performatively do it 5 times a day, and that is something that is also talked about in the Quran, but not often by scholars. Um, I also have a mysterious incurable sinus problem. Basically, my sinuses dry out a lot. They get cloggy. This is why I have to drink water an awful lot. I drink a lot of sparkling water because I have this weird feeling at the back of my throat constantly, and that's the only thing that diffuses it. So that is a huge issue for me because, yeah, if I don't drink, I get very stuffy and it becomes hard to breathe. And the other thing is that I have chronic pain. I have fibromyalgia. My energy levels can drop really hard, and then I can't move sometimes. I also have a problem in my lower back, where I had operations near the base of my spine when I was younger. I think I was born with some kind of birth defect there. So yeah, basically, if I lose energy, that can really make me crash. So that's quite difficult with fasting when your energy levels can be all over the place, because some people can really stick it out all day and just get used to it. That is more difficult for me. It is not impossible, and I have fasted for most of a Ramadan before, at least food and water a couple of days. Um, but yeah, so it is difficult, and so it is important to be mindful of that. Not to assume that every Muslim fasts. Everyone has their own reasons. Not every Muslim is the same anyway. Obviously, there are things that we're recommended to do and that can be wonderful and spiritual and things. But there are all kinds of difficulty, and Allah emphasizes that He does not want to put us in undue sort of stress or harm. So, unfortunately, people don't always listen to that, and there's always examples of people going a bit too far, but, take it easy. We need more of a... Hold on, let me see if I can find it. So this is Sister Rose's recommendation. If you are Muslim and you are not the best and you are freaking out over doing Muslim things and fasting as best you can and all that, take it easy. Anyway, let me check the time. Yeah, I'll be streaming nearly an hour. I suck at fasting myself. Oh, are you Muslim, Lily, or some part of similar tradition that fasts, or just for other reasons? Well, there are medical reasons people fast as well when they're getting blood tests and things like that. See, one of the things that helped me is that my sleeping pattern tends to be weird. I tend to stay up really late, so I don't have to get up so what? I just eat before I go to bed. Pepsi Max. Oh, okay. I forget what that's called. I don't know. That's the thing a lot of people do nowadays. You're a witch. I'm also a witch. I probably shouldn't say that standing in the Dome of the Rock, but you know what I mean. So that's one of the things. Like I said earlier, Islam used to be a much more syncretic faith. So I feel like a lot of neo-pagans have a monopoly on the witch thing. A lot of witches are Christian, and I'm sure there are even Muslim witches out there. I know there are Muslim witches out there, Sufi witches. But yeah, like for me, witch is kind of a figure of a religious outsider, like someone who's often part of a mainstream religion, but in an off way. Because like if you think about like a lot of the minority people, like a lot of time witches are associated with various minority groups, and often they were people who were still part of the religion and stuff. Like even thinking, for example, like of voodoo and how voodoo practitioners obviously coming from the Caribbean and all that, and using various sort of adapting things into sort of because voodoo is actually an offshoot of Catholicism, but also obviously includes a lot of syncretism from indigenous West African beliefs. So that's an example of that sort of syncretism that often happens in those marginalized communities. So something can simplify. So when it comes to like people that tend to get called witches, it was often quite a similar case. So yeah, Sufism in particular can be a bit more loose about that, but it depends. Like again, Sufism isn't something that gets separate from Islam or a denomination of Islam. It is the inner mystical dimension of Islam, Tasawwuf, how it's defined. But I guess the more slightly hippie-ish Sufis tend to be more open to things. That can cause problems in of itself. But yeah, um, so yeah, that's kind of complicated. I don't like to talk about it around other Muslims much, but obviously my VTuber character is a witch, so it's your family are witches. That's interesting. That must have been a fun upbringing. Um, yeah, so obviously everyone is welcome here, whether you're a Christian, pagan, atheist, whatever. Obviously in Islam it does teach that there is one God, and you should, you know, be excellent to each other and all that. But I also think, again, like I said, everyone has different. There's many paths to Allah as there are grains of sand in the desert. So, and it also teaches people a lot of things that are written about pagans and non-believers in the Quran are very specifically about particular clashes, times of war, or historical sort of things, or particularly in Mecca where it was basically a proto-capitalist society and people were valuing idols more than spirituality. So it's complicated. Um, so yeah, I'm not sure where I was going with that, but just trying to emphasize my own faith while being welcoming to others, which can get pretty difficult sometimes. So yeah, I've covered my disability, so I'm kind of running to the end of the stream now because I wanted to get this relatively short. I want to do some stuff before I watch wrestling with Yancha. So there should totally be a more Muslim wrestlers. I'd like to see like a more female Muslim wrestlers in general. I'll have to look that up and maybe do a stream about minority wrestlers at some point, maybe with Yancha. So yeah, Ramadan Kareem, I'm not sure I'll keep this model for all the Ramadan. That would be kind of fun, but it might be a bit performative. I don't know. I feel like implying it's fine for like a one-off gimmick, but I don't imply that I'm more religious than or better at this than I actually am. But maybe it will be a way of getting more into my faith. I don't know. I'll see what I'll do. I will almost definitely use some kind of Eid stream, so look forward to that. So I'm going to my parents for a few weeks soonish, because I'm having a very hard time and need to be looked after. Even though I am kind of a nanny who looks after others, I need to be looked after sometimes too, because I get ill and other things. I have various other issues that I haven't even talked about. Mock the Brits! Yes, okay. I'm going to talk and let me pick an accent to stick in. Rolling the wheel of accents. Oh, I'm gonna be a cockney, yeah? Roll out the barrel. You alright, mate? A bit queasy, innit? A little bit bit of a geezer. I hope you enjoyed that. Anyway, yeah, I really should. I'd love to go into more detail about the concept of being a witch and being Muslim. Michael Muhammad Knight wrote a book. Let me try and find this bloody thing. I have not read it yet, but I read bits of it. He's a bit of a controversial figure, a bit edgy, but he's written some good, interesting things as well. Books. Oh, it's just called Magic in Islam. I really should read this thing. Excuse me. Yeah, it's wild though. Like I remember, there's a certain era of Tumblr that was, I don't know, a bit, but yeah, there was like a page called Writers of Color, where I think it was called Writers of Color, so something like that, or Writing in Color, and basically people asked for advice, and they had a Muslim mod there, and they were very conservative, and a lot of people are going to Vice and asking for people to help them out with these things. They don't know this. They think, oh, it's a POC voice, they have to follow it. But they were like saying that people couldn't like write Muslims in like magical settings. They could never use magic or anything like magic, and all these very strict. And it was just taken as a given, and that caused, I think that caused people to like shy away from things altogether and not bother including Muslim characters. Like as well, even if magic is haram or whatever, if you like a quite a different universe where there's slightly different rules, then things might be a bit different anyway. Like why? It's like there's so many different things that are considered magic or called witches. There we go. So that might be interesting reading. But yeah, so I would say that it is inverted commas dark magic that is haram, like magic that is used with a malicious intent or whatever. I do tend to wear the term black magic again because it is often associated with marginalized communities. So it's kind of complicated, but yeah, I do not, again, like with homosexual, I do not think the Quran is like explicitly against any kind of magic or whatever. In fact, Solomon was like quite explicitly a magician. He was kind of an important character in. So yeah, it's kind of weird to like, because like the whole thing of Sunnah is like the path of the prophets, not just Muhammad. So yeah, so the Sunnah of Solomon was magic, I guess. But yeah, so it's often focused on like the jinn teaching their magics to humans, stuff like forbidden magics, and yeah, like the concept of forbidden magic is a pretty common thing, and it can be hard to draw the line, of course, and whether you actually believe these things are real or not is another thing, because even if you're religious or spiritual, you might think that that's more of a, yeah, that there's not actually that much paranormal as such, that everything is kind of after you die, or sort of way behind the scenes and sort of stuff like that, like maybe a more Gnostic approach almost. I think I'm kind of like that sometimes, that I'm a bit skeptical as to how much paranormal stuff actually exists in the world, but I do still think that there is a spiritual source at the very center of it, and that there are definitely bits of Islam that line up with that quite well for me, so but yeah, obviously I do believe in more than that, but anyway, I might start to wind up stream now, so I hope this was enlightening for everyone. Obviously I'm around Twitter. Yeah, lots of imposter syndrome. Like for me especially, like, because there are so many comers that are better at learning things than I was and things like that, but at the same time I think I like to think that because of my crappy ADHD and everything that I have going on, that like in some ways I do wish I was better, but at the same time maybe Allah made me this way so that I could become my own Muslim, or my own Muslim adjacent or whatever, or yeah, no, my own Muslim, I should say that. I shouldn't, that is giving into imposter syndrome. But yeah, even if I'm not the best Muslim, I think that in some ways I can be an inspiration to others, in terms of that you can still interact with the spiritual path in some ways, or well, set of paths, whatever, and or really already interact with traditions even if you don't go all in for them. So maybe I am this sort of wobbly fuzzy Muslim for a reason, and that it's caused me to get to spiritual places that other people might not, that are more ritualistic. So yeah, I'm going to end on that note. So thanks for that, Dragon Cat Lily. So I'm going to wind up now and look for someone to raid into. I do not think I'm following any Muslim streamers right now. I'm trying to think of who will be okay at receiving a Muslim streamer. Hannah Reload. Oh no, that might not be the best bunny gift. Hey Aiden, welcome to the stream. You're a little bit late, but I'm actually about to raid into someone else. Oh, yeah, you'll see me again, don't worry. I'll be putting up some stuff on YouTube too, because my VODs are no longer on here, and they need to be edited. So, should I raid into someone bigger or someone smaller? There's no one that I could raid into Hassan for the laugh. Hassan. Irene. Raid into Moonsy. What would you guys like me to raid into, actually? What would chat like to, just, there's like 60 there. What would you like to go? This is like after church activities or whatever you want to call it. Where would you like to go? Do you want to watch games? Do you want to just chatting stream? What sort of VTubers you want? Would you like a cabbage VTuber? A shark VTuber? A horror VTuber? A Casey Explosion VTuber? Wow, Juniper has a lot of followers now. Molly Moss? I do not think I'm following them before. What does Molly Moss do? Let me check. Yeah, Give me a second. She does art and gaming. It's playing Dark Souls too. That's a funny That's a funny segue. Okay, I'll raid your friend because you asked, and I don't know who else to raid right now. Yeah, it's just kind of a weird stream for people to come in from, I think. There are other Muslim VTubers, and none of them are online right now, unfortunately. Okay, we're raiding this random person that I don't know. Do.
You punched me. You punched me twice. I'm out. This is your fault. Dang it.
I can't think of a funny raid message. I'm so bleh. There has to be a joke there with Dark Souls and Muslim stuff. Or something. I'm just... Oh my god. Hold on. Maybe...
Yeah. That was way longer than the thought. And there isn't a particularly faster way of doing this. I guess you can run. Especially now that we have the
This is rubbish, but try it anyway. This is your raid message. Praise the sun. It's Ramadan.
Three boss fights. Because like half the time you just get cornered and your souls are just gone. And they are quite a nice amount of souls. But yeah, I like the dispense with their kind of blue. Oh.
Bye everyone. Salaam Alaikum. Wa rahmat.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get that like bad because he's willing to eat 8 normal stabs to the back. Oh, people. I mean, oh, hey! Pizza Rose, hey! Thanks for bringing your friends along. Welcome, everyone. We are playing some Dark Souls 2. And I'm getting my butt kicked. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, welcome, everyone. But why? Ah, thanks for following. Not for anything. Hi, it's nice to meet you. I hope to raid you someday. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy me dying before the boss fight several times because I do think this is what we will be doing for the rest of the stream unless I sub Prevail. But that's not looking good particularly right now. But I surprised myself. I don't know that I am. I think you can see my souls from here, proving that I'm not winning.